Chapter 2, The Isolation. The first rays of dawn, if they existed, were nothing but a distant memory in Alex's new reality. There were no windows, no curtains, no means by which to discern day from night. The room felt like a tomb fashioned expressly for him. Days blurred into nights, and time lost all significance. Alex's mind replayed the harrowing events of his abduction incessantly, each iteration amplifying his fear of what Damien might do next. Sleep eluded him, no matter how exhausted he became. The fear of what might transpire if he closed his eyes was overwhelming. What if Damien returned to assault him? What if he decided to kill him? The possibilities were endless and terrifying. Damien, meanwhile, remained a distant yet ominous presence. At first, he was cold and indifferent, treating Alex as nothing more than a mere object in his twisted collection. He rarely spoke, and when he did, his words were clipped and devoid of emotion. This only intensified Alex's paranoia, rendering him even more vulnerable and isolated. During the early days of his captivity, Alex's interactions with Damien were minimal and frigid. Damien would enter the room without a word, deposit a plate of food, and depart. Each time the door creaked open, Alex's heart raced with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. He scrutinized every movement, every subtle change in Damien's expression, searching for any indication of what his captor might do next. Paranoia gripped him tightly, and he refused to consume the food Damien brought, fearing it might be poisoned or drugged. His mind was constantly plotting escape, but the cell offered no clues about his location or any potential exits. He was confined within the room's oppressive walls, with no access to the rest of the building. The cold, damp air clung to his skin, and the stench of decay was ever present. His futile escape attempts left him despondent and resigned to his fate. As the days turned into weeks, Alex lost track of how long he had been imprisoned. The cycles of day and night melded into an endless haze. The room's oppressive atmosphere weighed heavily on him, sapping his strength and will to resist. His once graceful movements became sluggish, his spirit dulled by the relentless monotony of his confinement. His body grew thinner and weaker as he denied himself sustenance, terrified of the potential consequences of consuming the food. Eventually, hunger and exhaustion became insufferable. Alex's body was racked with weakness, and he knew he was teetering on the brink. With no other choice, he began to eat the food Damien provided, though each bite was swallowed with trepidation and suspicion. One night, after days of captivity, Alex succumbed to illness. His body was ravaged by fever, and he eventually passed out from exhaustion and sickness. When he finally awoke, he found himself covered with a warm blanket, his clothes changed into something dry and clean. The small act of kindness left him bewildered and conflicted. Had Damien, then the man he feared and loathed, taken care of him while he was unconscious? Alex's mind became a battleground of emotions. He couldn't reconcile the cold, calculating kidnapper with the person who had shown him unexpected care. The fear and mistrust remained, but a seed of confusion gnawed at him. Damien's gradual shift in behavior was subtle yet undeniable. He began to bring Alex meals, though he never stayed to watch him eat. The icy demeanor softened slightly, and the once menacing presence now carried a hint of something more complex. Despite these changes, Alex's fear and paranoia persisted. He was unable to trust Damien, and every small act of kindness only heightened his sense of vulnerability. Damien's gestures became more frequent, leaving a book by Alex's bed, providing extra blankets when the nights grew colder, and even once bandaging a small cut Alex had sustained. Yet, Damien's face remained inscrutable, his true intentions an enigma. One night, in a feverish state, Alex experienced a vivid dream about Damien. In the dream, Damien was not a captor but a protector, someone who understood him deeply. But upon waking, Alex dismissed the dream, rejecting any possibility of emotional connection. He remained a prisoner, and Damien was still his captor. As the days dragged on, Alex remained a captive not only of his cell but of his own fear and distrust. He longed for escape, for liberation from the oppressive solitude and the terrifying uncertainty of his future. But for now, all he could do was endure, his mind and body locked in a relentless struggle for survival. The once beloved dancer had become a shadow of his former self, haunted by the constant dread of what might come next and the slowly emerging complexities of his captor.